Today, we see a badge cam that, quite frankly, unless you are an incredibly seasoned and savvy cop, would be incredibly difficult to win. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's research-informed badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from Ontario, Canada.
Today's video is sponsored by Delete Me, and not only is Delete Me a sponsor of Active Self-Protection, I am a client and have been for years. Just like our other sponsors, I never recommend something that I do not personally use all the time. And I've been a customer of Delete Me's for over 2 years. I've got the receipts to prove that for you. And listen, what they do is they go and talk to and request all the data brokers get rid of your personal information so that your personal information can't be sold and brokered around the internet or available to people who might stalk you or use it for nefarious means. It has kept me from having my address online, where I had a stalker at one point, a crazy lady from the gym. And literally, she couldn't find where I was and what my address was because we had been using Delete Me. They check over 1,000 brokers. They recheck every other month and put in delete requests, and it goes again and again and again. Saves you hundreds of hours of work. And I am very happy with the service at a really reasonable price. I'm trying to be even safer and smarter in 2026, and maybe this is a great way for you to be safer and smarter this year too. Hit the link in the description and check Delete Me out. Rural area here, call comes in of a car in the ditch. So the constable is going to come over and see what the heck is happening, sees the car in the ditch there, and then a bunch of people kind of standing around talking about it and seeing if they can help. He's going to pull around to see what's happening. So he is going to climb out of his cruiser here in just a minute. You see it kind of go down the street till he can find a place to turn around. Then he is going to get out and talk to these people. We do have audio of what happened on his badge cam. And so it's pretty serious, friends. So steel yourself, and then let's listen in and hear what happens.
Another older couple here.
Guys, I'm giving you a heads up. My body camera's on, so everything's audio and visual recorded, okay? Okay? I'm just trying to figure out what happened.
Okay, I was looking at the navigation.
Yeah.
And I just swerved off because I was looking at the navigation.
In the first-degree murder trial, the perp here, this video from his cell phone was shown of him waving the gun that he used in this murder off around on the camera, and he actually had this. It was a Glock 19. That's illegal for Canadians to own. It's got too short a barrel, and so it had actually been sold in Glendale, Arizona, and at some point smuggled into Canada. And unfortunately, Constable Pachala paid with his life for this. He did not make it. Our perp and his girlfriend were both convicted of murder and given life sentences with 25-year mandatory minimums before they could be paroled. Mike, I hate these. Our prayers are for Constable Pachala's family. But I think we can learn some lessons here and hopefully help this to happen less.
Yeah, tough to watch, but it bears watching to learn those lessons, John.
Mike, tough one to watch for sure. And you see, this is just a car that spun off into the road. And if you were listening to the audio, she says she was just looking at the navigation and lost control of the vehicle. And so this is one of those calls that it's real easy for your shields to go down. It's real easy to kind of just, okay, fine, whatever. It's just a regular everyday call. And I really think it would have taken a really savvy officer to see some of the kind of pre-attack cues that could have been here. Number one, the officer's there and the guy is walking away from him that you could see. Number two, he's hiding kind of, behind his girl and behind the vehicle. But those cues, man, those are pretty small cues to see.
We talk about complacency and how complacency kills. And I don't think this was even so much complacency, John. You roll up, this is a Canadian cop. It's perpetually winter up there. There's perpetually ice and snow on the road. I'm sure cars roll off the road all the time. This is probably, the third one this week that he's dealt with. Probably just there to make sure that people get back on the road, make sure nobody's impaired, and then go get lunch is probably what he's thinking right now. And not really primed to think, okay, there's a dangerous felon here with a gun who wants to shoot me for whatever reason. I'm still not sure why this guy did what he did. But I think when you sent this to me, because you sent it to me to watch to prepare for a badge cam, that I'm now, as the viewer, I'm primed as a seasoned former cop to be like, there's something going to happen here, or else John wouldn't have sent it to me. So already I can't tell you how I would have responded to this, because I don't have that purity of just, I show up at the scene and this is what I'm seeing. Does that makes any sense to you, dear viewer? I think the important thing here is treat every call like it is a training evolution, as John likes to say. Treat every call like, don't assume everyone wants to kill you, but assume it's a possibility. And I think I'd like to think that after 20 plus years in law enforcement, I would have been like, this guy's freaking me out a little bit. He's making me hinky. But again, when John sent it to me, I'm automatically primed to think something bad's going to happen. So it's tough to say how I would have reacted. But I think seeing this guy behind the car, seeing him kind of keeping the girl between him and the cop, not being able to see his hands. Hopefully, someone watching this will see that in the future and be able to prevent this from happening to them.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those where you're like, okay, wait a minute, is everything as I expect it to be here? Is this normal or is something off? And you see him kind of like hiding behind his girlfriend, kind of, keeping her between the two of them, and staying back and not showing his hands and kind of turning away, kind of, oh, I'm hiding from him. All those things kind of add up a little at a time. But I want to be cautious here, because I want to talk real quick about what we call hindsight bias. And recognizing that this got released to the public, so I'm watching it knowing that something evil happened rather than the first playthrough, right? So we always talk about a reasonable officer with his or her training and what would we expect them to see. And they only get one playthrough. They only get it the first time. So when we watch this in hindsight and in looking through, we have to be cautious of that, of confirmation bias and hindsight bias and consequence bias. And these are all real biases. You can look them up online. But I will say, you recognize here him blockading her between them and hiding his hands is an indicator that he is doing bad things, or at the very least, he's got stuff on his person that he doesn't want this cop to know. And of course, in this case, it's a felony level offense for him to have that gun. He's got a bunch of violent offenses before. And so he just decides, Mike, okay, if I'm in for a penny, I'm in for a pound, which is just insane to me, that he would go from, I don't want to go to prison for this gun, so I'm going to murder instead.
Yeah, he could have tossed the gun. He could have done a lot of things. He could have just stood there and not done anything. I don't know if this cop wouldn't necessarily run in for warrants or whatever. We'll never know. I'd like to think the one time when we go back a few frames where he turns around, he's doing something very clearly with his right hand. He's turned around, faced in a direction he shouldn't be faced in. There's nothing over there for him to look at, as far as I can tell. Maybe that's going to be your sign. But again, there's another aspect of normalcy bias, and it isn't so much that you want to wish everything away and hope that everything is normal and do the normalcy bias thing. The other part of normalcy bias, in my mind, as I define it, is I don't want to overreact to something. I don't want to be the person who is too jumpy or freaks out. Frequently, when Stephanie Widener's teaching her classes, she'll say, people will be like, well, it's probably nothing, so I don't want to overreact and embarrass myself by, calling the police or yelling at someone or whatever it is. And that'll happen to the police as well. It happens to you as a cop. You're like, well, I don't want to freak out and yell at this guy and tell him to show me his hands or whatever. You can't be afraid of that as a law enforcement officer. Again, if you overreact a little bit and it turns out it was nothing, fine, it was nothing. You can then apologize, dust the people off, and send them on their way. Again, this is really tough to say what I or another officer would have done in the situation with more experience. This officer was very young. I don't know how long he had on the department or how much experience he had, but it's tough to say. Again, being primed to know something bad's going to happen, it's tough to say what I would have done. But this guy, the other thing is, John, he acted so quickly. He didn't waste any time. This guy, the officer just walked up. So this guy didn't have any vibes from the guy or anything else to go off of. The kid just pulled the gun, turned around, pulled the gun, and just got after it right away. So it wasn't like he had a lot of time to sort of get a feel for what this kid was about or if he was dangerous or not. The kid acted really, really fast.
I agree. He didn't even pull the gun. If you watch here, he just turns through. He doesn't even pull the gun, just picks it up in his pocket and fires around right there. If you didn't catch all of those previous indicators, I just don't think there's any way that you could possibly have stopped this shooting from happening. Now, is the constable wearing a bulletproof vest? It certainly looks like it in the pictures that we saw of him. His uniform included a bullet-resistant vest. But there's an awful lot of person that's not covered in the vest. Okay. And I just don't think here there's anything that could have stopped this, certainly this first shot. So there is a discussion to be had here, though, about emotional fitness that says, okay, even if I'm hit, I'm going to win this fight as best I can. And I'm going to stay in the fight until my consciousness is gone so that this guy doesn't get away and do this to the next person. And even if I am behind the curve, and I think this is an important thing, because if you notice, we talk about this, Mike, with private citizens, that when private citizens, a lot of times, almost always, in fact, when a perp pulls a gun on you, it's to intimidate you into compliance. But when they either pull a gun, show a gun, or think a gun is going to get seen by the cops, they're just going to use it. And so this is not uncommon with police officers, that they don't pull a gun and point it. They pull it and use it. So you're already behind, and you have to be prepared for that and to be hit and to keep acting if you possibly can.
Yeah. So I don't know where this officer was hit, but as John alluded to earlier, the most soft body armor, 3A armor, it'll stop pistol rounds, and it goes from basically the bottom of your rib cage to your clavicle and in between there. Most of the times, if you get hit beneath that, between the bottom of your ribs and your belly button, that general area, most of those wounds, generally speaking, are really survivable because there's not a lot of critical stuff down there. But you get caught in the femoral artery or some other unfortunate place that's not covered by body armor, it's a bad day. I will say this: if this is me, and let's say I know I'm dying, let's say I'm bleeding out to the point where there's no chance of me surviving, I want to let this guy have it before I go. I want to make him as uncomfortable as I possibly can and make him pay for his actions in shooting me that day. I can't imagine what goes through the mind of a suspect like this, to where he thought this was his only option, was to do this cowardly act and to shoot this young officer. But if this is me, I'm going to do my best to stay awake and alert and fight back to the extent that I can, even if it's the last thing that I do, John.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now you watch the second shot. I'm actually very surprised here that the second round, he actually fires a second round from the pocket. A lot of times people say, well, if you fire a semi-automatic gun in the pocket, it's going to foul. It often will. And I think that that's a thing you should be prepared for. But here it didn't. He was able to fire it multiple times at the officer. Of course, this poor woman on the right, not involved at all. Or I think she was just a bystander who pulled over to help. And so, she's scared to death as well. But again, this guy just decides he is going to murder in that moment. And unfortunately, Officer Pachala, he's hit bad enough that he goes down. You heard the screaming and his cries of agony, and my heart breaks for that. But it's a good reminder to practice spiritual fitness, right? That you got to make sure you've lived a good, sane, sober, moral, prudent life, that you've solved every conflict that you need to and that you can with your loved ones, and that you and Jesus have a strong relationship, because you ain't going to have time to get it maybe on that day, and you are going to need it. And I lament this, and no amount of prison sentence is going to make this better. No amount of sending these two people to prison for life, or at least 25 years before they can even think about parole, is going to bring him back. And so sometimes we just don't get justice, Mike, and I wish we did, but some fights are just not winnable, and justice isn't to be had.
Yeah, let me go off script here a little bit, John. But I've said it before, where you see these guys. We recently had a guy in Tampa who was running from the cops and running people over. Someone that I would refer to, and I'm quoting a former magistrate judge in Southern California, as an unrepentant scumbag. Someone who's just so bad, they're so patently evil, that you feel that there's no humanity left in them, and they'll do anything they can to get away. This is a real thing that happens. There's real evil in the world. There are people who have given themselves over to evil. This young man, I believe, is probably one of them. And as a police officer, whether you're in Canada, the United States, or anywhere else, you have to be prepared to meet this sort of evil. There's a better than average chance that in your job you'll meet someone like this through the course of your duty. I came across someone who was being transported, who'd murdered a young boy in a bathroom in Oceanside, California. He walked by me with vacant eyes, snake eyes, nothing behind them, and I got a cold chill up my spine. These people exist. This young man is probably one of them. You have to be, to the extent that you can be ready, you have to be ready to deal with folks like this. And as John said, no amount of prison time, nothing you can do to this guy would assuage the righteous indignation and anger that you feel watching something like this. There's nothing you can do to this guy that would make you feel any better about what you just saw. So the best they can do in Canada, unfortunately, is to put him in prison for at least 25 years. I think officers watching this is a really, really good ad for spiritual and mental fitness. It's a really good ad to tell you, hey, man, if you haven't talked to your significant other, to your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend or your kids or your parents, if there's an outstanding beef between you and someone else, you don't want laying in a snowy road, bleeding out, that to be the last thing that you think about. So get those things taken care of, get them squared away to the best. Maybe you can't, right? But at least do your best to get those things taken care of. And, understand that a relationship with Jesus is going to be the first thing that matters to you after this is over, because that's who you're going to see. So make sure that you've made that stuff right in your mind and in your heart before something like this, God forbid, happens to you.
Yeah, it's just the real truth. And of course, in the end, I wanted to go back just briefly to the Crown showing the video of this guy waving a gun around, because even in America, the contents of your cell phone can absolutely be admitted in court. Judge gets to decide if it's more prejudicial or more probative. But this kind of thing, I think, will come in more often than not, because it shows, aha, this guy is flaunting the law. He has violent convictions in his past, and the convictions will come in into court for sure. And then also, hey, we have video of this guy flaunting that he owns this gun, and then he used that gun to murder a police officer. And even in the U.S., I would think that it would probably come into court and be a part of things, and end up in first degree murder convictions. And I think these two people certainly should be convicted of first degree murder. Again, that's not going to bring Constable Prishala back. So our prayers are for his family today and always. Hey, officers who are watching this in roll call or at an academy, I don't want your face to be on one of these, okay? I want you instead to take this as a mental rep so that you can avoid this kind of circumstance by seeing those pre-attack indicators and covering your ass.